Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Drawing for Tattooers. I'm your host, James. I am going to start with some warm-ups. I like to draw ellipses to warm up. So, you are... sorry, everybody. Yeah, so if you're new here, I like to draw these terrible shapes. Anyway, it's really very difficult to draw an ellipse very technically. So, I like to practice. Awesome. I'm not worried right now about clearly I'm not worried about what these look like. But I think if you're ever in the clutch, like you have to do one of these shapes, you'll be glad that you practiced a little bit. So oh, getting a little bit of interference. Hang in there, gang. Technical difficulties. Come on. Come on and work. Here's me. Let's try it again because I'm still warming up. Oh, right. What do we got here? Goodness gracious. Okay. Well, I will keep. I'll keep working on it. I will definitely keep working on it. Good morning. Welcome to Drawing for Tattooers. I will make sure to get my technology working. In the meantime, you keep sketching or you keep warming up. Once you're feeling nice and warm, nice and awake, let's get into some. We're going to stretch a little bit. We're going to stretch and we're going to make sure that all of our muscles are ready for all the activity of drawing. Again, this warm up stuff, you're going into it cold. You want to get the blood pumping. You also want to activate your imagination in your mind. So this is a diagram of all the really finely tuned muscles that are they make up your forearm. It's what allows your hand to do all the things that it does, right? So all of these muscles in your forearm, it's what enables you to go ahead and and make all of the really delicate movements that allow you to draw stuff, allow you to use other tools, right? Use a screwdriver, for instance. So what we're going to do is we're going to think about how how we can sort of stretch the flexion, right, and the extension. So again, so you put out your hand like so, right, straight arm, no bend in the elbow, and you're going to pull back on your hand just a little bit, right, and that'll help to stretch all the flexors. All right. Once you have that stretched, 30 seconds, then go the other way, right? Extension. Hold that for a few seconds, right? Do it on both. Do it on both. I'm responding. Eastern. That's 8 Central. Right. If you're watching this, it's 9 a.m. in the East. It's 8 a.m. Central. I don't even know what time it is on the West Coast. I know we know some tattooers out there that are on the Pacific Standard Time, and so it is early, and it's great to have you. Do these warm-ups, do these stretches, do them before you start a lot of drawing. I think doing them before you do a lot of tattooing can also be really, really useful. So let's see this, and I want to start up. If you are new here, this is Guy Atchison's Reinventing the Tattoo Network, where tattooers, collectors, and the curious are all encouraged to join us in these live and real-world events. We beam out a few times a week, and so with your help, we've become a quality network of live and asynchronous content. There we go. Cool. So we just we had quite a few people that went out to the Hell City Tattoo Convention. If you got a chance to go to Hell City, drop in the comments. Tell us how it went. How was your experience? Did you enjoy the convention? I didn't get a chance to go this year. I'm really hoping that I can catch it next time. But you know, you don't know what the future holds. So I'm really hoping that we do get to meet up in person. Here we go. All right. There it is. Worth it, right? Totally worth it. All right. So do your sketches, do your warm-ups. Don't worry about it so much. Really not, what do we got here? Okay. But really it is, it's just important, I think, just to move your hand around. I think it helps with the artist block. Yeah, Hell City or bust. Yeah. That's right. Thank you, Tattoo Now. Hey, good morning, Ziggy Romero. Really good to see you in the chat. Right, let's talk for a minute, everybody. This one. Got a lot of options on the side. I'm trying to keep up with all the really great options that we have with the streaming service that we're using. Anyway, today I really wanted to focus on drawing roses. Hopefully you saw that on the thumbnail. Roses are a very complicated subject to draw. We have to actually have a lot of working components to pull it off. That doesn't mean, right, that you can't do a very stylized one. There's a lot of American traditional roses that are, I'm going to say they're elegant in their simplicity. Nothing wrong with that. Really, nothing wrong with that at all. That's not going to be what we're necessarily focusing on, but I think the lessons that you can learn from approaching a rose as a subject, a very complicated one, can really inform the stylized ways that you might want to draw it. So you could, of course, replicate somebody else's rose, for instance. You could always do your own version, right? Your own composition. I think you really get to that by going to the source, right? By actually looking at roses, flowers particularly, take photographs, draw them from life. I think all of these ways can be really, difficult, but also there is something that's I think valuable in struggling through it. Kind of like our warm-ups, like we're talking about, right? They are challenging, but you do them so that way you're ready when the time comes. So I have a QR code I'd like to share. Let's look at a little bit of inspiration. If you like, you can scan this QR code I just put up. It's to a tattoo artist named Phil Garcia. Phil Garcia is an amazing tattoo artist, and he really has an amazing approach to tattooing roses, for instance. So he does a lot of really incredible work. Let's see if I can share. All right, let's replace this screen with this one. Yeah, cool. All right. So again, the QR code is for Phil Garcia's website. Please go there and see him. He also offers many tutorials that are excellent. They are excellent. So scan this QR code now, and you can just jump right over to Phil's website. But in the meantime, why don't we just let's check out? Oh my God! Oh my God! Look at this thing. What if you had that? Well, somebody does. It is an amazing tattoo. If you're just listening to us, I'll try to my best to give a verbal explanation of what we're looking at here. It's a rose on a neck, but it's not just any old rose on the neck. It's a Phil Garcia rose on the neck, and it's almost glowing, iridescent in a in a real way. It has a real contrast, not only in the textures, but you can see a lot of different textures that are going on, but we also see a contrast in the color, right? The hue. There's a temperature difference. There are cool purples that are framing this rose. Again, very cool in temperature leaves. They're darker in value. Dark value leaves, very cool green versus a very warm, we could say pink, but I think red orange would be a much closer way to talk about what's going on here. So right there in the center, it draws our eye. All this warm color. Again, there's cool gray tones that I almost didn't even mention. Right, all on the petals. It gives this rose a pink cast, but also maybe just it's a very light colored object. Right, this rose is very light in color. It has a blush of warmth right in the middle. Again, just sort of through contrast, through accentuation, as it really captures our attention. It draws you in. It's very beautiful, right? So it's an extraordinarily exceptional example. Like, okay, so if you're new to, to doing tattoo or to to sort of rendering roses, uh, you are not going to be able, likely, likely not going to be able to just do this. It's something that's going to take a lot of practice. But that's hopefully what we're going to start to. All right, I'm not promising you can be Phil Garcia, right? There's only one. But again, uh, having an understanding is going to help you improve this product. I mean, we do it all the time. I think we do. I do roses all the time with tattoos. Um, and speaking of somebody who's doing roses all the time and tattoos, Kyle Olson. Hey, Kyle, great to see you, man.
Hey, how goes it? How we doing?
Oh no, Kyle's
No
from.
audio.
Well, hopefully we'll get Kyle back. There you are. Yep, see you.
Okay, yeah, my reception's not the greatest out here, so
I
um,
can I can hear you. I can hear you barely. It's a little bit muddled. Maybe it's my side. I can't tell.
probably not. Can you
Oh,
hear
there I
me?
can hear you. Okay, very good.
Yeah, sorry.
Uh, well, Kyle, I'm so glad you could come today because you have been making some excellent rose tattoos, and I'm hoping that we can check these out as well. Um, I was just showing the gang some Phil Garcia roses.
Mm,
Let's check out a few more, and I think I think analyzing them is so this one
mm-hmm.
poster promotion for a convention. Uh, it's very simple. It is has a real sort of simple approach, but then again, like you step back and it really becomes this really complicated, elegant thing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, what are some of your thoughts here, Kyle?
Oh gosh, it's his roses are just insane. Um, I really admire his work and like Andres Acosta's roses and stuff like that, and there's a couple other artists I can't think of their names right now. Their roses are just insane, and to be able to try to understand what they understand. You know what I mean? It's it's definitely interesting for sure. Um, and this one, from what I can see, I definitely like the cleanliness of it, 100%. And then, just the decisive colds and warms, to where you can really, really see the drop shadow, and then like the translucency in that petal that's up above, like the light source coming behind it and everything like that. Um, just the little tricks here and there. Um, it can really help sell the realism of the rose. Um, so
Yes. Very, uh, very nice sort of read on it. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so you can see it. But that'll help. Again, it's when you check it out yourself, you can really get in there. But
mhm,
there is something important to take a step back, seeing something in context, and then before you really get in there and appreciate all the details, you take it in. Also,
mhm,
try to see the whole forest, as it were, for the trees,
mhm, mhm,
whatever metaphor you like to use. But certainly, uh, it's easy to get lost in all of this. But it's logical. There's a sense to it,
mhm,
and it wraps sort of around this center. And again, I want to talk about this a little bit more, but I'm hoping that we can sort of get inspired by what is possible. I think this is contemporarily, this is very possible today to do this type of thing. The equipment that we have access to as tattooers, the level of ink quality that we have, I think, is also it enables this sort of thing to have longevity. Again, it's
mhm.
not just that. It's not just those elements, the tools and the equipment. That's not what's going to give you longevity uh, exclusively. Again, it's going to come in a really thoughtful plan, thoughtful approach to the tonal value, the scheme, right, of the shadows and the highlights that makes a contrast, that makes it first legible. You can see shapes and forms, and then finally readable. This is readable as a rose, for instance. I Yeah. What I'd like to do here, Kyle, if you don't mind, I want to show some of your flowers that you've been doing because they are awesome. Let's see.
But
I'm gonna stop
there,
this share. I'm gonna share another screen, everybody.
uh, you're gonna show my stuff after Phil Garcia, dude. That's like,
No,
no.
it's not. It's not a comparison. It's not a
That,
comparison, but it
that's
really
true.
is
That's
like,
true. That's true.
Kyle. I really do think that these are excellent. Um, you're gonna be critical, I know, but I love it. I think these are beautiful, dude. So, um, and I think there's a lot of the things that we were just sort of discussing are very apparent in your piece here. So,
Hmm.
something that I really appreciate that you've been doing a lot of is this. I'm going to call it the windmill principle. If you're not familiar with the windmill principle, um, let's see. Yeah, if you're not familiar with the windmill principle, it's a, I'm going to call it it's a Rembrandt concept. Uh, James Gurney talks about it, but also Guy Aitchison talks about it as well in Reinventing the Tattoo. And that is this relationship of positive and negative shapes, uh, values, and how you arrange them throughout. So again, I think, if we're looking at this lower right hand petal as it's in front of this greenery, these leaves and stuff, it's very graphic. It has a real sort of sharp contrast and stuff right there. So I think that's very smart. It's really well done. It's difficult, and you may have. Hmm, I'm not going to say invented it, but like you may have been exaggerating slightly, anything in it to good effect, but you may have exaggerated the image slightly in order to like get that.
Hmm.
I think it was really nicely done. Um,
Thank you.
but yeah, you want to talk to us a little bit about the
Well,
sort of the
like
scheme of your plan that you had.
the the reasoning behind like the windmill principle over there, and then like on the other side is just making like I'm trying to strengthen the silhouette of the rose overall. I'm trying to make it to where it's easily readable and it's not muddied and everything like that. I remember Jake Meeks talking about like the connection of like shadows and stuff like that, which I still need to spend more time on. But I've always just been drawn to um, just like your focal point, making sure that you can see your focal point, everything's legible, it's right there, and then everything else is just kind of complementary or just kind of there to help fill in areas and stuff like that. So a little less focus on the roses or the leaves around the rose, you know, a little less detail and stuff like that, and then just putting all the emphasis on the rose itself. Um, really trying to dial in on the hue shifts, you know, from like the yellows to the oranges to the pinks and dark purples and stuff like that. Um, it's This one was a really fun one. I've worked on um, another one that I want to do a second pass on, and then there's another one that I'm working on that I just distinctly worked on the underpainting of it, and then trying to build up upon that. Um, you might have to. I've got the pictures on my tablet.
Ah,
Um,
well, if you want to share it, we certainly can. I know that I saw this one tattooed.
mhm,
It is a beautiful tattoo for sure. Um, but yeah, no, it's I think that the plan that you're putting together
mhm.
is it's really starting to I think bear fruit as it were. I wanted to show this one too. Such a fun one. Love this one. Love that one.
Oh yeah,
I
dude,
know it's not roses and stuff, but
the water is so fun.
it is a great fun little design. So
Yeah.
yeah, is this one available? Can somebody come and see you
Oh
and get
yeah.
this tattoo?
Yeah. If somebody wanted to, it'd be fun. You know, it'd be a fun summer tattoo for sure. Um, just trying to put out like different styles and designs and stuff like that. Just trying to really broaden um, the styles I can do.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I know that you could certainly you'd be able to pull this one off I think, very well as a
that'd be fun.
tattoo.
It'd be
So
super fun.
yeah, very well. Anyway, get it while it's hot off the presses, right? Get it while it's hot. So
Yeah.
I that one's sick. All right, so I really yeah, I'd love to see that one done as a tattoo as well. Well, okay, so I'm gonna share your maybe. Ah, yes, here we go. So yeah, cool.
So that's first pass. I feel like um, the oh shoot. I feel like the edges are pretty weak when it comes to like the outer side stuff. I feel like I need to strengthen that up a bit and to really just I don't know to help give it form. Um, I know that I talked to you and Sandy and Bruno about it, and you guys all had super helpful hints and things that I should try out and do, such as like expanding the yellow out a bit more and having smoother transitions with that. Um, so I'm really interested to see how it healed because this is fresh. So uh, yeah, yeah, that's I just need to see it healed. So maybe here in a couple weeks I'll be able to take a picture of it and stuff like that and see how it healed and how everything settled and really be able to figure out what I need to do from there because there's so much changes that happen between fresh and healed that
Mm-hmm.
um, that yeah I'll be able to yeah so I really hope that the light gray in the background is like super light. I made all the leaves super dark to kind of help contrast with all the lighter spots at the rose. Um, and then yeah. So I needed to see this bad boy healed, and then the other one that um, that of this guy's healed. Oh shoot. Um, so yeah, this guy is healed. He's this was I went and had lunch with her and her husband, and my wife came along, and I was able to check it out. And there's certain areas of the underpainting side of things that I feel like I might need to expand a little bit farther on. Um, such as like this area right here. I feel like I stopped a little early, that I might need to bring it out a bit more, just like the softer stuff. Um, because I feel like it's the darkness comes out a bit more, and to be able to have like a pretty consistent underpainting, is just with like your darkest darks, I feel like is what's going to help it hold over time. Usually with like color tattoos, with like if you go too light with colors, this, that, and the other thing, and it doesn't hold up over time at all. So that's what I'm trying to combat, to where like this thing is still going to look good like 10 years down the road. And talking with Chambers about like the traditional way of doing things, to where you did the black and gray first, and then you did the color over top of that. So like when the color fades over time, if it does, um, it's still going to look like a really good tattoo, because you have that foundation. So kind of that same principle of just like having like really solid darks, to where hopefully those are what's going to hold up over time, to where like when I pack in all these like yellows and oranges, and those fade out a bit, like 10 years down the road, that it still won't be that bad. It still be look really good. And that's what I'm trying to go for with it. Um, so it's just like, it's so, with what I've experienced so far with the roses and everything like that, it's just like this, just focusing on like the underpainting, the darks, and making sure that you're giving it form really before you start getting into all the other colors and stuff like that. In my opinion, I feel like that's what's going to really help it, and what's really going to help sell it, as a rose. Because like in the other one, if we compare the two roses, um, get this guy. Whoa, hey, wrong one. Um, bring that down. I feel like this one has so much more readability and believability to its petals and everything like that, compared to this one. Um, and I feel like if I were to, because this was all just like one session, and then this one's going to be two sessions. So I feel like the way that I might tackle, if I get a tattoo of roses, is to just to do every single one in two sessions. Because that might work best for me. I know there's other artists that can do it in one, good for them, stuff like that and so forth. Um, so yeah, just so I can make sure that the foundation is really good before I start getting into like building the walls on the roof and everything like that. I feel like it's just, there's gonna just so much more dynamics when having like these really built up edges, and making sure that the all the petals are believable as being rounded and having depth and everything, compared to the flat ones. If I just, yeah, I feel like it's going to help so much more, making sure that really strong foundation is set in stone and good to go. So
Absolutely. I also think that you may end up, again, it's probably a relationship that you would have, like to the, whatever it is, background and foreground, right? Like so,
mm-hmm,
and it's a contrast thing. It's positive, negative, and
mm-hmm,
as you develop some of the midtones in uh, this one that's on the left, it's
mm-hmm,
like it's going to get even more formful. The one on the
mm-hmm,
right, I think when it comes back and you see like how it actually settles in, um, I think you're going to feel like it has a lot more form. It does, and I know you're
mm-hmm,
mindful of, you're conscientious of the form. You're conscientious of how important that bit is. So
mm-hmm,
but yeah, I appreciate your, like your critique of it, and but I think for people that are, if you're here watching it, this is pretty advanced. Just being honest, right? This is pretty advanced for, especially for beginners. A lot of times uh, that's our audience. Sometimes we have people who have been tattooing a long time,
mm-hmm.
and they get stuff from our conversations, and I really, there's something about that I think it's amazing. It makes me, want to keep doing this. And
Mm-hmm.
so I really appreciate you sharing this with us, Kyle. Um, I wanted to just real quick. I'm gonna throw up a QR code. I'm gonna put a QR code on the screen for you. I'll put a QR code on the screen. Um, right. So Alfonso Dunn. Alfonso Dunn. If you're not familiar with, his work, where'd that go? Show it. If you're not familiar with his work, he's a fantastic drawing teacher on YouTube. He also writes books, and I'm sure he does like in-person stuff. But a lot of what he says, it really resonates with the things that I think about, and so I want to recommend him if you're not familiar. Again, there's all kinds of great resources out there. You're really interested in learning how to draw better. Of course, Proco. Hopefully, everybody knows that. But Alfonso Dunn is also like a very exceptional teacher. So again, I think you've got to really be interested in what you're interested in. You love tattoos. You're here. You love tattoos. You have to look at other tattooers' work. You have to study the way that they're constructed, and then of course, like by doing them, learn more about how to make it. Of course, I think that's going to inform your drawing too, ultimately. But there should be more. I think there should be more where you get out there and you're drawing from life. You're drawing, everyday objects like coffee cup.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
You're drawing people, right? You're drawing hands. You're drawing faces. You're making all sorts of studies. These are going to be really crucial, like lessons for you. You're going to do master copies. We talked about master copies last week. Very cool chapter in a book. And then of course, Kyle, you and I, we attempted to draw a guy Atchison painting, and I thought they were kind of cool. In my humble opinion, I thought we did a nice job.
Yeah, we kicked its ass. We did good.
Go back and check that one out if you didn't get a chance to see it. Anyway, Alfonso Dunn, he has a really great, it's a very short episode on how to draw roses. I'm gonna like sort of whip some of that as well, but let's hide this, and we'll get into. Hopefully, I could share my screen with you all. Yeah, cool. All right. So we've just talked a lot about roses, and I think that the best way to think about it is of course not just like a two-dimensional image that you're looking at. Instead, you want to think about it like something that has three dimensions. So if you have a, let's see it. If you have a, I should be warmed up, right? A cylinder, right? You have a cylinder. This is the way that you can start to think about rose shapes, right? So you have this cylinder shape. Again, Alfonso Dunn really talks about this in his episode about this rose. You might very well start to see that there's all these petals, and they're going to wrap around, right, the form, right? So you may very well see this sort of shape, right? But that's what's happening. These petals, they're actually wrapping around a form. Another form that you might see, right, is maybe like a cone sort of shape. And you may very well start to see the same, you may very well start to see some of the same, some of that background stuff. You can tell it's a three-dimensional object, right? This same kind of pattern, right? It's one petal, it's really crossing over the other, right? And it's also sort of folding over on itself. There's going to be almost a spiral right? If you like, in the top of it, and so on and so forth. And then we're gonna end up having these repeated sort of. Now this looks like a cabbage, right? You don't want to draw it like this, but I'm just started talking about like some of the concept, right? The concept of it. Maybe this is basic, but I think we can really get into this, this sort of frame of mind when we're drawing them. We're trying to approach it like that. It's this. It's just we get lost in the details, right? It just becomes this flat thing. Again, just really thinking about what is going on as this petal sort of starts to disappear back here, right? Maybe there's a shadow that sort of emphasizes that edge. It becomes a lost edge, and that's something else I'd like to talk about a little bit. It's like this idea about edges. Um, yeah, there's this continued sort of it almost becomes mesmerizing, right? As you're looking at this spiral. Another I think really useful, interesting sort of principle is this this idea again. So you're thinking about cylindrical shape, segments, right? You think about these sort of segments, and then again, it's you're imagining that this petal is folding down and being able to sort of think about how that would work is going to it's going to help you be able to approach that as a subject. So again, you may very well just end up um, uh, copying, tracing, an image. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. But if you ever wanted to draw your own, how would you approach it? I would suggest that you practice your very basic forms, or these sort of fundamental forms. You really start to think about where can you see them, right? Again, we see this rose, we see all this detail. It becomes, we see too much in it, right? We're not seeing this sort of essential form that is taking place. Instead, take a step back, try to realize, what it is that's comprising all of this, whatever this rose is, whatever makes it up, rather than just the shape. Start with shape, right? And then think about the form, how the form working. So we'll put in rose, and we'll zoom in a bit. I think there's definitely a few different ways you can approach this sort of thing, and you're going to get different results from it. You're going to get, I guess, different lessons from going through it. Because again, we can't draw for you, right? Nobody can draw for you. You have to draw yourself. That's the only way that you end up becoming more familiar with the drawing. I just found a rose on Google, right, for this one. Took it from Google. I don't think, but it really doesn't matter. Like if if you take your own photograph, if you have a rose in front of you, you're looking from life, internet search, or even if you have if you have an AI generated image, I would even, I would caution, against too much AI generated roses. I don't think they work yet. You know what I mean? They're a little bit like sort of confused. They look pretty, but once you really start to dig in and try to make it, make it work, it's almost like that whole phenomenon. AI makes like too many fingers on the hand, right? It's like AI makes weird petals on the roses. So there's still you're still going to need to sort of find a good source your rose as well, as it were. But anyway, here's how I would approach if I'm just sketching this, right? If I'm just sketching this out and I really want to sort of get into it, what I would start off with first, the shape, and I would also think about line. As I'm, if I look here at this rose, there's all these details. I don't want to mess around with that yet. I don't want to focus on it. but one of the things, right, is that you might see is, I'm going to zoom in. Hopefully this doesn't mess up my stream, but right, like, right in there, that edge is so soft. It's like a lost edge, right? We're going to draw it with a line, but it's like, how do you really manage it when it comes to a tattoo? Like, if you try to just bingo that relationship between how close those tonal values are, you might end up with like something that doesn't have a lot of longevity. That's a real consideration. I don't want to say it, that it's impossible, but it's highly likely you're going to end up with something that doesn't have a lot of strength. So you may need to sort of like exaggerate. And then what I would say is like, it's darker over here, it's darker right there, sort of going that way, right? Going that way. So a windmill principle, right? It's dark over here, it's lighter over there. That's sort of a thing. So, right. Oh, please come back. Hold on a second. Let me see. Will you? Oh, yeah. Let's see if it'll do it again. What time? All right. Let's see. Well, Kyle, while you're here, I'm going to try my best to get my screen back up. But yeah, talk amongst yourselves.
I can just I can keep doing what you were doing, just talking about like the little things of like the edges and the windmill principles and stuff like that. So let me grab this and get this sucker plugged in. I'll make sure OBS is still working. Okay. All right, so yeah, I just found one online.
Cool.
Just real quick, and then hey, let's not do that. Yeah, the little things of like the windmill principle. You've got right down here, this edge right here. This side you've got lighter, and this side you've got darker. So you have your line right here, and like they said, there's two edges to each line. To be able to work with that windmill principle, so you've got darker here, lighter here, and then at this line, how it's just a tiny bit lighter right there. And then you've got the same thing. It's darker here, lighter on this side. And then, like you said, the soft edges, you might have to build up the emphasis on that just a tiny bit more, just to make sure that line is somewhat defined. But you don't want to go too much, too across, because you want to make sure like the center of the rose is like the focal point. You got this edge here, it's darker on this side, lighter on this side. I kind of like this soft edge though. I feel like it works well because you've got so much light over on this side that this side, I don't know, I kind of like how it just kind of fades back in and it's not like super defined. That could just be personal bias. And then yeah, you got super simple, a lot of lights. So for like this part, how would you go about it, James?
Which part again? Oh, inside of there. Yeah. No, I agree with you. The soft, having a lost edge is an important technique that you're going to have to practice. I think it's a really important technique. If your lost edge gets too lost, if it gets too lost, it can actually, again, be challenging to have that legibility, right? There we go. Thank you for dealing with all these technical sort of difficulties. All right, so in that center part, like how do you deal with it? Well, I would I would try to pick up those small shapes, those small shadow shapes. So that's a term that that artists use a lot, the shadow shapes. And again, they are very important. You wouldn't, I believe, really want to think about them as what they describe. What is this shadow doing? So a lot of times what we have with a shadow is it's either a soft shadow or a sharp one. And soft shadows, shadows with a really soft edge, again, it can be somewhat diffused at the edge, but if it's sort of soft, it's going over the form. It's what we call a form shadow. It's describing the form, how this plane is sort of moving, again, like a cylinder, or again, like these petals, like how they're sort of moving through space. If it's a sharper edge shadow, we would refer to that as cast shadow. So shadow that's, a shape, form, plane is blocking light, and so it's making that shadow shape against another plane. They mean stuff, right? Shadows aren't just like random, dark here or whatever. It's physics. It's an expression of physics. And so as we're thinking about interpreting what we're looking at, if you identify this is the form shadow, this is the cast shadow, right away, you're going to end up, I think, having a lot more success at being able to describe the thing that you're going for. All right, so that all that middle stuff really important. It's a detail, and I would first want to block in all of the shape. So all right, so if I'm sketching this and I really want to make it like I want to make it a sketch as opposed to just a tracing of the pattern. I would likely start off. You could start off two different ways. One way would be sketching, right? So you could start off. Oh, you can go start off with again, kind of looking for an edge, right? Just define kind of the overall composition, right? Like, how is this going to fit? I hope that's. I'll try to draw. I'm going to try to draw it a little darker. You can make it really light and sketchy as you're developing it, but I'll go really a little bit heavier so you can see it on the screen. Just blocking in, and again, it's like the proportions may be off. And then, so just there's nothing wrong with erasing. You can't erase while you're tattooing, of course, but if you're sketching, you should feel total license to clear the visual field, as it were. So again, just sort of roughing in. Remember at the beginning, if you were here in the beginning, you saw me doing this terrible ellipses, right? Well, this is where that can make you feel better. It can help you just sort of like, don't worry about this part. Sketching is supposed to be this way. But I look at other artists, somebody like Derek Hess. He's an artist that was sort of certainly popular when I was young, but he's got a cool TikTok right now. Derek Hess on TikTok. He's putting all kinds of drawings out, so that's awesome. But he does a real sketchy kind of aesthetic. So all of his work is, it's very gestural and sketchy. You may find that you really maybe you're really good at sketching. You just don't know. You have to give yourself the permission to do it. I don't know. Again, it's like that might not be totally accurate. But lost it again. Well, it was fun while it lasted. I'm mortified. Mortified.
Hey, it happens, man. It happens.
This it's I would love to make excuses, but I won't bore you with excuses. I'm just gonna say carry on, right, with the sketching bit, right? You saw the big, you saw the two approaches, right? You got this big shape. Sketch that out. Sketch the parameters. Next, start thinking about the form, right? Go back to that cylinder idea. Like, how are these petals starting to wrap around? Don't get lost in the fact that there's, petal in front of the other, right? Let's see, we got somebody in the chat. What's up, chat? It is so bad. Hey, GFY. How about that?
Well, I mean, like,
Yeah,
expand on it.
yeah.
Like,
You
what do you
can
mean?
go. You can GFY.
Yeah,
That's what I
it's
think. So it's so
yeah,
bad, you're so bad. How about that? No, I'm
yeah.
kidding. I'm joking. Chat, we love you. But your constructive feedback is always welcome.
Um,
Anyway, uh,
yeah,
don't watch
like,
it. Don't watch it, MFer. You know? Good.
um, yeah, like if you're gonna say it's bad, please expand on that instead of
Yeah,
just
what does
saying
that
bad. It's
mean?
very vague. Yeah,
Yeah,
um,
I'll
but
tell you how you are. Anyway, I don't
yeah,
just no,
like
I
I
love it. I love it so much. Because again, like, if you're ever gonna make this great art, you're gonna make so much terrible shit before you ever get even close.
mhm,
And I think like trying to present yourself as somebody who doesn't lack anything, like, you're somehow like perfect or whatever is bullshit. And
mhm,
so um, and I'm immediately suspicious. So
mhm,
again, you want to present
mhm,
your best sort of put your best foot forward. That's always
mhm,
important. But
mhm,
again, uh, we're all in the process of learning. So
mhm,
if you've already got it, you got it all together, then go have a great time,
mhm.
and go fuck yourself. So that's all I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Um, if I could say anything, like the way that you were talking about um, the rose, if you're drawing the rose, the one thing that I really liked is how it's just not like, oh, draw this petal, draw this shape, this, that, and the other thing. It's more of just like, well, how the hell does this work? Like, how is this petal moving? Like trying to really understand what's going on there, because that can really help your, understanding of the reference, your understanding of how it should look and stuff like that, trying to really put it in like a physical space in your head and trying to really understand the 3D-ness of everything, and how it works. Like that, I feel like tackling a reference drawing that way, you're going to end up, I don't know, it's just going to be so much more fruitful in that manner compared to just being like, oh, draw this petal, color this petal, draw this petal, type of thing. You know what I mean?
yes, thank you, and I do appreciate that. I think that's it's going to help move us out of just being in copying mode,
Mm-hmm.
right? Again, you might be a realism artist. That could be your focus, and you're really sort of trying to make this realistic depiction, just copying the photograph. Nothing wrong with that. It's certainly valuable. I think it can be quite beautiful. But at some point, you may want to compose your own thing. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
get there, I think, through the practice of learning how to understand form. And so that's where I would start. So shape, develop the form. You're going to describe, either a line or an edge.
Mm-hmm.
So with tattoos, that's our most powerful secret weapon is the outline.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important, and you're going to want to use it to great effect. If you use the same line everywhere, it diminishes its strength, right? So the same thing, like if all the edges are all wishy-washy everywhere, it loses its
Mm-hmm.
fidelity. But having contrast, difference,
Yeah.
uh, particular sort of strong lines and then strong shapes, uh, you're going to end up, um, I think, developing something that has some really interesting bits. Hey, Creature's Cave
Mm-hmm.
is in the chat. Hey, Creature, great to see you. Should I tattoo with gray wash lines or color wash lines when creating realistic rose tattoo? I Kyle, I'd definitely love to hear your take on this. I think that if you end up, if you're using like really light lines, you're going to need to go back and strengthen them with either some shading one way or the other,
Mm-hmm.
or you'll need to go back over them with a more saturated line. In many cases, like it's probably going to be one or the other. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly, this is a really great technique, I think, to help you build out a much more complicated form. Again, you can, There's all kinds of really uh, elegant and beautiful traditional American tattoos with strong outline. There's a formula to the shading. It's not about light source. It's really more about like this dark to light thing. If you're going to tackle this sort of realistic rose,
Mm-hmm.
then what I would suggest, certainly trace it, right? Likely that's going to be the the better sort of approach. But then after that, really carefully start to build up all the values and treat the line like a value.
Hmm.
Anyway, Kyle, what do you think about this?
I think one, it's there's pros and cons to both. I feel like if there's quite a bit of like hue shifts and like value shifts within that edge, definitely just gray line, because then it just makes it easier. You don't have to worry as much about making sure stuff is precise, unless you like it, unless you like doing that, to where you just change the values and build up that first. But I can see both ways working, honestly. I think it's more what is most comfortable or what's more complementative to your style, to the way that you want to tackle. Um, because there's more than one ways to skin a cat, that's graphic, but there's there's more than one way of doing that. So I guess it's just like because honestly, both ways you can end up with like the same end goal. um, I can see a little bit more versatility, a little bit more breathability within the stress of a tattoo, by just doing like gray lining and stuff like that. I can see a lot of benefits to that. Um, and yeah, the one rose that I did that had some color line work, that was just mainly there to make sure that um, the hues, the coloring, how all the coloring is going to be and stuff like that. Just really focusing on the warms and colds. So it's whatever you want to do, creature.
Yes, I would suggest paper first, paper, and
Mm-hmm.
then uh, also maybe some fake skins.
Mm-hmm.
Just generally for everybody out there, I think that
100%.
those are going to be really it's a great way to start. Right,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to need to tattoo out a person eventually, but of course, draw it on paper. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to give you a lot more experience into figuring it out. So yeah, thank you, creature. It was a great question. Um, so try one more time. Um, maybe. Uh, yeah, there. Okay, okay, we're back. We're back. Right back to the
Yeah.
drawing board. So again, as you were sketching it out, I would certainly start off with this, very blocky. I like angular sort of sketch. Measurement can be really useful for you here, like measuring the distance between like the how wide it is versus how tall it is, and you can put really light, sort of sketchy, crosshairs if you like, and then after that, again, if you have sort of all of that shape in, then you're really starting to think about you're starting to narrow down, think about the form. Um, how are these things starting to uh, how are they wrapping around? And then when you'll get to these little spaces, right? Like the bulb of the rose is really intersecting like two, three petals, as it were. There's all kinds of really interesting little bits where it's like the rose petals are touching each other, and so it's like they're disappearing, right? They're disappearing, and you have to figure out like what's on top of what, like what is in front of what. Doing that, I think, really kind of starts to help you make something interesting. Okay, sketch it. Right, once you get to like let's say that you get to this little zone right here, right? You've drawn everything out, and now you're into that space. Then again, I would start to look for these little, these little shadow shapes, indicate them through a line. But later on, you'll start to shade it out, and you'll start to figure out like what is, where's it darkest, right? Where's the darkest dark? You might end up as a sketch, right? You might end up sort of toning in this whole area, right? And then going in with a with a really small eraser, and then erasing out some of the highlights, as it were. And then you can just you can start to push it a little bit. I like that term, pushing and pulling. It's this idea that you're going to end up describing the form through rendering, through the shadows. But if I squint my eyes and look, or even if I took this image into, into curves or something like that, I could really see that there's the darkest parts are really right here in the center, which again really draws our interest. It really does draw our interest. So on and so forth, right? You really start to describe this middle bit without getting too finicky with the details. Now, right? So, hey, there we go. The perfect drawing, right? You end up like making this perfect drawing. No, well, yeah, okay. If you make this perfect drawing, this perfect sort of line drawing and stuff, when I'm making a stencil, for instance, I like to indicate for myself some of these, let's call them tricky spots, right? So I indicate for myself, you can see some hatch lines. Those hatch lines are going to correspond to, it's darker here. On this line, right, on this part of the edge, it's dark this way, dark on this side. I think for me, and I don't, hopefully you can, can relate. When you're in the middle of tattooing, you've got a line drawing in front of you, you may sort of just, it's easy to get into automatic mode and you start putting in outlines. And you might end up putting a dark line where you don't want it. It's not the end of the world. Hopefully, you can sort of figure out how to deal with it. But I like doing this cross-hatching thing. I think even if you're doing a much more simplified version of anything, having a little cross-hatching in your stencil can be really useful. I know some people have those really detailed, like inkjet prints of stencils. So if that's what you use, that's totally cool too. You may not have to do this step. But if you're just hand drawing your stencil, you're hand cutting it, which is basically you're tracing it onto the stencil paper, or using a stencil machine, Thermofax. Having just a little bit of indication for yourself, I think, can be really useful. What's nice too about, if you're working digitally, you can use a new layer for rendering. You can sort of turn this outline layer down if you want it to be just a little bit more subtle. But if I'm approaching this, like if I really wanted to sort of render this, let's say pencil or digital or whatever, what I would do first, I'm going to squint. I squint and I look at my reference. When I squint, what I'm doing is I'm suppressing the color information. I'm really seeing the tonal value much more clearly. And so what I will do is I'll squint and I'll see this whole section, let's say right here, and I'll just block it. I may just go sort of one direction. I'll just block in some tone right there. And again, I was thinking about this. Maybe we'll do this on another sort of episode, but the thought of, you could always sort of block this in with a big brush. I know Kyle uses that technique quite a bit. I think it's really effective. I certainly like to do it too. But again, it can also be this really sort of challenging thing. It's like you have to be thinking about the shape, the edge, the form all at once when you're working that way. You're just sort of blocking in with a big brush. I think to start out, using lines to kind of bring everything together is a really good way just, to begin with that. And again, I may, so as I'm blocking in, I may sort of go too far and color in something that needs to be lighter. But just like I was showing before, you can always like erase some of that out. The tattoo, to really watch how this is done in a tattoo, I would recommend the Phil Garcia's tutorial on how to tattoo rose. It's very in depth. It's also very advanced. So I would certainly practice on paper and stuff first, but then you could certainly you'll be able to get a lot more out of this Phil Garcia tutorial. Okay, so back to it, just a little bit more rendering. I won't bore you all with the details, but again, yeah, I'm just gonna try to control a little bit.
So, do you think if you took your reference and did a motion blur of like up and down and just kind of did that, do you think that would like kind of help replicate what you're seeing when you squint your eyes?
I think okay, so yes, but also for me, I'm gonna see if I can do it. So when it's blurry, I think it gets blurry. But what what I'm hoping to sort of do when I squint my eyes is this, and I'm hoping to see this tonal value, right? And then
Okay.
even more, I'm hoping to see like that, right?
Okay.
Again, it's like, all right, that's not exactly what we're seeing when we squint our eyes, but this is the thought that what we're doing is we're like just, we're kind of blowing out all of the midtones. We're just seeing the light and the dark. So
Okay.
especially, when we're talking about like this really small area, I don't want to see it too blurry. It's like, so try it. So don't blur, but just try to squint and see, you know what I mean? And just sort of see like, okay, it does, maybe it blurs a little bit, but what you're looking for is this value structure. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you're hoping to achieve without, like, again, it's hard to do this in life, right? It's, if you have a
Mhm.
photograph, you can always have this as a nice sort of point of reference.
Yeah.
These darks might be too dark, but it's that simple relationship, light dark, that again kind of helps you to describe uh, what is there a bit more effectively.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes total sense and that's super helpful.
Yeah. For me, it's like if I tap with 4 fingers, everything goes away, and I've got a nice sort of open spot here. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
again, just I'm not going to say scribble, render. Trying to render. If you kind of take your time, my old drawing teacher was really a stickler, especially if we're in the classroom and we're drawing and stuff, and he didn't want to hear the scribble. Right? If you scribble real hard, it's like you can hear it. It's like, well, he would say stop.
Mm-hmm.
There's no control there. Instead, like you want to control where it is that you are, where your pencil's landing, as it were, and how
Mm-hmm.
far your mark is going. I I believe, and so I'm sure people will fight me, but I believe that if you're just your wrist is going like this, that could be very dangerous, right? Just like that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some people probably have some people could go their whole lives and no issues, right? There's no issues like with how their wrist moves. And I think a little bit of flex, you know what I mean, because you're moving. So I'm not trying to say like hold it like hold it like an iron rod or whatever. I don't. But just a little bit of flex. But if you're just uncontrolled, like that, I think you may end up having some issues with your wrist later on. So again, that's
Mm-hmm.
That's my thought about it. I've certainly known people who've had lots of issues with, say, carpal tunnel, for example. Uh, but all I'm saying is just be mindful of your body. That's why we talk about like warming up. That's why we talk about doing the stretching and stuff in the beginning, um, because it really is, it's important. All right, so blocking in, blocking in, blocking in. Not trying to be too. I'm not worried about like details and accuracy, like uh, to a point of paralysis, right? But again, you're really, you are trying to get it. Don't go for the middle tones, right? No middle tones. You're thinking about the dark darks, right? We're just like how you brought it up. I think that's really important. Just these dark, just this sort of pattern, dark light, dark light. That's really what you're, I think what you should be thinking about. All of this, all of that, almost all of that pedal, right? I've toned my background a little bit too. It's slightly, it's not, it's off white. It's a light gray. But again, like now it's like, as I once I have it blocked in and it starts to feel like it's that's pretty good as far as like a first pass. Now I can start to really squint and see like some of the subtleties, right? I might focus in on this area and be like, okay, I'm going to push this shadow a bit. I may not want to go full black yet, like to the fullest dark that I can make, but I might glaze over that area or push it back into the background. Same thing here. Darken, push that shadow. Don't be scared of it. But what we want is we want to heighten this contrast. And I think that whole you can approach your tattoos. I think because I've seen people who tattoo very well. For instance, uh, Guy Atchison's approach is he is very free with like sort of jumps around, goes all over the place. He'll put a little bit here. It's he does thoroughly cover everything, but it's I'm not going to call it frenetic, but it's it definitely is. It's very gestural. There's a painterly quality to it, which is really nice. Uh, but there are other people, their approach is much more intentional, I suppose, right? Nico Hurtado, for example, or like watching the way that Phil Garcia works, it's very much like you are very carefully kind of finishing this section, making it fully rendered, and then you're moving on. Steve Butcher is another one that has that. So the photorealism people, the way that they work. I think giving everything a starting off with having a few different ways of working can be really useful for you, and figuring out what fits you best, right? What fits your temperament the best, what fits your way of understanding stuff the best. These are all going to be really useful.
Whatever helps you keep the utmost 100%, 150% attention to what you're doing, not letting your mind wander. I like the all over, thing.
Yeah, me too.
It's so fun,
It's fun.
ADD, whatever the hell you want to call it, but like
whatever.
yeah, just jumping around is fun. It's not always the greatest when you're tattooing, because you might hit a spot you haven't hit in like a half an hour, and client might not really like that. But,
yes, no, I think that is a really good point, and it can be. You really have to develop your approach. You know what I mean, and be mindful. There's a person on the other end of that, so it might very well be. You have to do what you have to do. So I'm not saying sometimes you have to be. You have to deliver some pain, I suppose, but certainly being mindful can probably get a lot more out of
Yeah.
your client. Okay, so all right, now, all right, so you've got your rendering. It started. You may, you may want to like blend it out a bit. Oh no, come back. Okay, good. As if I don't freak out at like, just so yeah. So blend it again. I'm always like sort of, I'm of a few, I'm of two minds about blending. Sometimes I'm like, oh, you blend it. It's like you lose all of the character of the mark,
Mm-hmm.
right? All this sort of, sometimes the hatch mark that you make
Mm-hmm.
can be really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But if it certainly goes a lot faster, and maybe a nice way to think of it is that you blend, and then you go back over it with some more hatch, right? Okay, it's getting there, right? It's coming together. Um, so what I might do, okay, I'm just gonna jump ahead a little bit further. I wouldn't do this right away, but again, we're in the interest of our time. I might sort of start to put in some lighter and be accurate with it, right? But just put in a little bit of lighter stuff. Look at it, look at it, look at it. Don't. There you go. And you can always you can leave it illustrative like this, like an
Mm-hmm.
illustration. Um, you put a little thicker outline around the perimeter, or you can always like frame it in with some dark around it. Let's say I don't want to put this. I'm trying to diffuse this light just a little bit. I'm also thinking about just sort of the direction that it's going. I
Mm-hmm.
also put it on a new layer. I think that can be uh, something to consider when you're drawing a pencil, for instance, is like sometimes mixing media is really great. So I don't want to say like never do it, but you can also, you can quickly end up with something pretty muddy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that again, like, seems like a good idea, but you might end up kind of ruining the quality of whatever the the stuff you were using. Right, you're using pencil, you're using graphite, whatever it is, and sometimes you sort of losing all that good stuff. Well, this is like a value study of this rose, and we didn't even really talk about. We briefly touched on color, but again, like I was kind of saying in the beginning, you're gonna want to be able to have all that stuff at your command: the, the value, form, the line, the edge, and also intensity. Right, the intensity of the value. These are going to be really, really crucial elements to kind of have. Again, for a tattoo, you might, I pretty much our consensus that you're going to need to have some solid black. Having like all color. I'm not talking badly about all just all color, but certainly having some black to reinforce over time because the tattoos are worn. I mean that's kind of it. Like, tattoos are worn, and so like having no black at all um, could might you might lose some of the readability over time. Anyway,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
everybody's going to have to deal with that on their
Mm-hmm.
on their own terms. But certainly there are purists. You have to use all this black shading. Um, Andy Chambers' idea of like doing gray wash underneath, I think, is pretty interesting. I think there's valid points on both sides that you may not have the same intensity of hue if you have the if you have some gray wash underneath it. I think there's a point there. But
Mm-hmm.
also to his point that you're actually giving yourself a lot of structure tonally if you're going to use some gray wash underneath. So uh, again, I think there's probably pros and cons to both sort of
Mm-hmm.
approaches, but all right, a little bit of middle tone, right? Just a little bit, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
still I think I'm trying to see these sort of small shadow shapes and push them. It's like a little, it's like fuzzy here in the middle. So how do we address that? I squint and I look, and it's like, well, it should be darker. I don't want to have a hard line right, right there, but
Mm-hmm.
I think if I zoomed in for you, it would I'd lose my feed. So I'm so sorry, everybody. Hopefully that makes sense. But right in there, right in the middle, and then maybe, maybe I do just a little highlight right, right, yeah, right there. Oops, well, bring that highlight through. Right, it's that's too intense. It
Mm-hmm.
stands out too much. But again, I think the white's not good. The white ink is not going to save you, right? If you if you don't structure it in a
Mm-hmm.
really effective way, it's certainly not going to. The white's not going to save it. It can heighten, right? I think that's. I'm hoping that's what we have here is like sort of a heightening of the form. Hey, that's not. Yeah, if you like look get far enough away and look at it, that's not too bad. Um,
Mm-mm.
you
Not at all,
gotta take
man.
your time.
Yeah.
It takes a while. Kyle, how long does it take you to do those beautiful tattooed roses that you make?
Um, they can range anywhere between like 5 hours to like 8 to 10. Like it really depends on like the
Amazing.
rose itself and the size and like what we want to do with it, what we want to accomplish. I think that the first rose that we showed, that was like, I think that was a 5 or 6 hour rose, and then the blue and yellow one was a 5 or 6,
Hmm.
and then I think the other one I'm like 4 hours in, so that one might be a little bit more like of a 10 hour tattoo. So yeah, it takes time. It takes as much time as it needs. Can't rush this shit, you know.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Well, so I'm just sort of, but that's the thing, I mean, you probably sort of go on and on about it and never really finish it,
Mm-hmm.
but taking your time, especially in a tattoo, I know that it hurts, and people have expectations, but
Mm-hmm.
like you just said, I think so well is that it takes as long as it takes. It
Mm-hmm.
really truly does. So you got to be
Mm-hmm.
patient if you want, this higher level. Again, it depends on your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are here and they're watching us for this whole time. Some people are just like they need their attention span can't go past, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the extent
Mm-hmm.
of time they can spend with something.
Yeah.
I again,
We
I
as
think that
creatures are dopamine whores, so.
it takes, yes, it takes. I think it takes some discipline, right, to sort of
Mm-hmm.
to make yourself sit, especially like in a negativity. Um, if you're rendering something like we saw, like it was so bad before, right? But I think if you really, give it some time, you may find that you truly made something that's profound and beautiful. I think that's possible. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Roses may not be your thing. You may not like them. Some people don't like doing lettering. You know what I mean? Some people don't like doing traditional.
Mm.
Whatever the case,
Yeah.
you know. Sometimes it's good to get out of your comfort zone, do things that you're not, you don't feel as confident in. But I would suggest, I really would, starting on paper. Feels like there's a pedal here. Starting off on paper before you head into the skin, it can be so disappointing, right? If you don't really have a good plan going in when you're tattooing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's not to say, right, that you have to have every sort of thing, you know, prefigured and like assumed. Um, there's got to be room for discovery. I think that's also true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that definitely keeps the interest level up. Um,
Yes.
to
Yes.
where it's just not like, oh, I've done this same thing
I've done
3 times
this.
already and I haven't even
Mm-hmm.
tattooed it yet.
Yeah.
Compared to like, all right, I'm gonna get to this point, and then I'm gonna get to this point, and then get to this point, and then I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
tattoo, and I'm gonna get to this point. It's like this continual. discovery on just like one piece?
I'm feeling pretty good about this little study. Again, you can
Mm-hmm.
take your time and you can do it. I hope that what we've talked about today has been really useful and helpful. We've definitely shared a few resources to help you along the way, and also I think what I'm taking away from this whole thing, all right,
Mm-hmm.
enough, is that you've got to draw it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to draw it yourself. Nobody's going to draw it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is the essence of being an artist, somebody who draws. I think that it's drawing and sketching. Um, we're
Mm-hmm.
visual artists, so that makes sense. But if you are a writer, you still have to do rough drafts and you have to make outlines and stuff. I mean, I think on some level you're always doing that, even if it's just this like if your visual art is very abstract and it doesn't matter, you're just sort of making movements. Still, on a conceptual level, you're still making outlines and sketches. Like it's still a thing. Same thing with any other sort of art form. You're always already prefiguring it, right? You're making it. You want to make it manifest in the world,
Mm-hmm.
but it has to begin in your imagination and like in the heart in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, but it's not real, right? Until you make it, because you can think that you're the best rose guy, right? You can think you're the best at all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? But until you actually, put it put it out there and do it,
It's a whole other
it's
world.
not, yeah, it's not working. Yeah, it's not doing it yet. So, but again, like roses are something that I find them very technically challenging.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're so interesting, difficult. I like the difficulty level.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always trying to get better at them too. Kyle, I really admire your roses that you've been making lately. It was really my inspiration for like taking this on in the first place today was to really just sort of show what you've been up to and then also like think about you know like this is something that we got to it's something we got to
Mm-hmm.
do all the time.
Yeah.
Almost every tattooer I know is doing roses. I'm gonna say
Well,
weekly, but I mean, if you're in a walk-in
yeah.
situation, you're doing them. You know what I
Well,
mean? Just you're doing them all the time. So
yeah.
practicing them again, you can just you could certainly copy old school tattoo designs. Nothing wrong with that. I think it can be really great.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but challenge yourself. Try this in
Mm-hmm.
life sort of approach. Try
Mm-hmm.
a photo reference, especially if you've never done one. Don't let it intimidate you. You don't have to show anybody. You just do it. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
put it on the internet like we're doing.
Yeah.
For everybody to say to
Mm-hmm.
say what they think. Doesn't matter. I think for me, I I enjoy the little failures. I think they're important. So the warm ups, the sketching through all the even technical glitches we have, it makes this gritty and real. So
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
if you
That's
like
it.
the realness of it, we're
Yeah.
real. We're real as fuck. So
There you go. Real as fuck.
uh, well, everybody that's watching us, love you so much. Thank you for joining. Uh, make sure to join us next week right here on Reinventing the Tattoo. Let me see. I have some more things to promote. Stuff that's coming up. The Tattooerpreneur Conference. Hey! June 23rd to the 25th. This is going to be at Red Tree Gallery in Columbus, Ohio. Uh, Dirk Morrison's shop. They got amazing artists over there. Fawn Baker's over there. Just Jordan Ruckus. There's so many. You know what I mean? There's like the whole Red Tree crew. Amazing. They just had Hell City. So again, I can't wait to talk to. I didn't get a chance to go, but I can't wait to talk to everybody that went. So exciting. Let's see what else. Paradise Tattoo Gathering. Um, Leave a better artist in person. I think that's true. I really love the Paradise Tattoo Gathering. Kyle, you're going to be at the Paradise Tattoo Gathering this year. Yes,
It should be. Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
beautiful Jiminy Peak, Massachusetts. Uh, it's in the mountains, the ski resort.
It's
It
gorgeous.
something it felt like it feels like the set of an '80s movie. I don't know why. It's like amazing though. You know, like it's between seasons. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we got to save the mountain from the developer. I don't know. Anyway, beautiful Jiminy Peak. Come check out Tattoo Gathering Paradise. There's lots of amazing seminars that are going on the whole time. So Tattoo Now. Tattoo Now is communication tools for tattooers. So Tattoo Now has CRM software, mailing lists, and they are very competitive with any of the tools that you get out there. Gabe Ripley has curated this fine suite of tools. I think they're really useful. So if you want to learn more, you can scan this little QR code, or you can, of course, visit tattoonow.com. Be sure to ask for Gabe. You'll probably get virtual Gabe. Ask for real Gabe. He'll get you. He'll get you. Rubber City. Hold on. Oh, Rubber City. It's a little QR code up here. I got lots of QR codes going on, everybody. So go back, check all these QR codes out. All you gotta do is scan them. It takes you right to the site. So the Rubber City Tattoo Invitational. I hope I'm saying it right. Amazing tattoo convention. Again, to learn more, check it out. And then of course, uh, show Reinventing. Maybe this is it. Reinventing Live. I hope that's it. That's probably takes you to the Tattooerpreneur Conference. But of course, there's reinventingthetattoo.com. You can learn more about the canon, being a part of the Monday night exercises. Kyle, it's always great to see you there. We've got a very cool guest coming on tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I want to double
Yeah.
check, just make sure.
Was it Adriana? Oh, hello? No? Dang, what's her name?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, you're right. It's. Yeah. Sorry, everybody. I want to make sure I get it right. Yep, reinventing. This. Yeah, Adriana Hollows. Thank you, everybody. Adriana Hollows. Adriana Hollows specializes in working with melanated skin. So this can be a really challenging tattoo project to take on. And so she has some really great approaches, something that you may find useful. And this is just an example of all the really cool stuff that we get to experience as part of the Reinventing community. Bob Tyrell shows up from time to time. Guy Atchison drops in from time to time. But I think what is really actually the real benefit is getting together every week, drawing pictures, getting some feedback, kind of getting yourself into the habit of how do I professionalize this drawing thing. Don't just do it when I feel like it. You actually have to do it sometimes. And again, I think what I experience when I'm at the shop, it's like somebody, let's say I've got some time to do a walk-in, somebody comes in, it's like, okay, hop to it, draw it up really quick. But being prepared for your appointments is so nice. I mean, your customers really appreciate it. Like if they show up, you got your drawing ready to go, especially if they need a little revision. If they want too much, you know what I mean? You say no. They're like, I'm not doing it. I'm keeping your deposit. But if they need a little revision, it's like you got time to do that, right? So I'm not talking badly about anybody, and some shit happens. But some like if your appointment that's been so excited for their new tattoo, they show up and you're like, I gotta draw it. I've never drawn it before. I just think that's a bummer. You know what I mean? That's just a real bummer. So again, you may end up sort of, maybe you're very spontaneous. You're going to do some freehand stuff, not really talking about you. But again, if you've got something sort of prearranged and you knew that it's time to do it, how do you get yourself to do it? Because procrastination can be such a tough thing to overcome. Well, I think having a regular practice where you're drawing
Mm-hmm.
within the parameters of a time frame, you have so long to draw, and then you move to the next step, is very helpful in this matter. So
Oh yeah.
I know that it's helped me. I certainly used to be that person. I certainly used to not have that concern about it's self-centered, right? It's like all again, it might very well be, it might really come from a place of insecurity in a lot of ways, but like, you're self-centered, you're not doing your drawing all the time. Sorry, you know what I mean? That's just that sucks. Having the community there to kind of keep you accountable. You got to get your stuff done on time, which is there's a feeling that you want to participate, and then it helps in the real world. That's what I've found. So can't encourage you all enough to join in. It's very affordable. It's worth it. So, and I think you can learn more. Go to reinventingthetattoo.com.
It's a lot of fun. It helps out so much. Like, even if you're in like an artist block, it gives you something to like, okay, well, this is the idea. You can draw it in whatever style you want, and you put it, in this location, and you're like, all right, cool, I can do that, and then you can just kind of steamroll from there. So it helps out.
Excellent.
I've definitely drawn things that I probably would have never thought on my own, and to be able to draw this up and get feedback on it, is only going to, improve you. And just like the more time you put into anything, the better you're going to get at it. So even if it's just you put into education like an hour and a half once a week, just even that is going to help you out. And
I think
just
so.
all the reading. Yeah,
I do. I think so too. That's going to do it for today, everybody. It's so glad that you could make it. It's always a privilege to be able to come on here and draw with you. Kyle, thank you so much for coming. I know you're on holiday right now. You're at retreat, so thanks for jumping in and sharing your tattoos. I think that's it's very generous. So we all appreciate it very much.
of course.
Kyle, where can we find you?
If you want to get a reach out, you can get a hold of me on Instagram at Olson, OLSON _tattoos. And you can also reach out to me at trinityartcollective.com. I really like this whole like taking a subject matter and just kind of deconstructing it type of thing. Like I was thinking about when we were talking about stuff of like different style tattoos, and just like breaking down a traditional tattoo, what makes it traditional, breaking down like this thing. Like, that's super fun. That's super cool. I like that. So thank you for letting me be a part of that. Because that's fun. And yeah, I'm always happy to share the stuff I've experienced, the stuff that I know. And I'm always about the constructive criticism or the negative criticism. I don't give a shit. I just want to hear, perspectives. So
Very good. Yes, I do. I like that too. So we definitely want to bring value. We want everybody to feel there's a good value here for you, and we want to keep coming back. So I think there's a lot in this little episode that we did. I think there was a whole lot. So I'm excited to go back and watch it. Anyway, everybody, thanks for coming. This has been Drawn for Tattooers. I'm James Wisdom. I hope you are all enjoying your drawing, right? So be happy and joyful as you draw, right? And then we'll see you next stream.